Welcome to an overview of classroom management as practiced in most teacher-led classrooms using an instructivist approach to instruction. My name is Bill Hewitt, and I'm Professor Emeritus at Valdosta State University and Adjunct Professor at Capella University. The presentation is narrated by Jeff Hewitt, who is helping me produce these videos.
The intention of this presentation is to provide a brief summary of some of the most important features of this approach to classroom management. Classroom management is intended to provide an atmosphere or climate that is conducive to teaching and learning. While high-quality instruction can influence that atmosphere, there are specific knowledge and skills that must be learned and implemented for classroom management to be deemed successful. Having a well-managed classroom is not only important for instruction, it is important for an educator's development of a high level of self-efficacy as a professional. Poor classroom management is one of the primary factors in producing teachers' stress and burnout and ultimately leaving the profession. Unfortunately, the knowledge, skills, and experience necessary to develop these classroom management skills are inadequately addressed in most teacher education programs. It is often cited as an area where pre-service teachers report a lack of confidence at the end of their pre-service programs. Classroom management knowledge and skills also receive little attention in the state-level assessment programs that most states have implemented. This is in spite of the fact that educators know the value of these and how a lack of classroom management skills impact teacher attrition. Another important aspect of classroom management is that school-wide classroom management and intervention programs are 50% more effective in creating an opportunity for learning than are situations in which each classroom teacher is responsible for developing a unique system. The consistency across classrooms makes it easier for students to learn the behaviors that are acceptable and not acceptable in the classroom environment. Most classroom management programs used in instructivist classrooms are rules-based. That is, they focus on developing and implementing classroom rules as the foundation for establishing classroom discipline. The learning theories we have discussed as supporting instructivist instruction also apply to developing classroom management practices. From operant conditioning, educators derive the need to establish rules that specifically state the desired target behaviors and establish both positive and negative consequences when the behavior meets or deviates from these desired targets. From information processing, educators derive the need to specifically teach the rules using the instructivist approach discussed regarding instruction. They need to get learners' attention, provide clear instructions, provide repetition so that learners can hold information in short-term or working memory, and then provide for elaboration through the use of examples and reflections on prior knowledge of appropriate classroom behavior. Educators also know the importance of guided practice and providing feedback as quickly as possible for specific behaviors. From social learning or observational theory, educators derive the need to model the target behavior themselves, and for some learners to model the behavior for others. They also know the value of providing contingent praise to learners who display the appropriate behavior, as this provides the opportunity for vicarious learning. There are 5 items to consider when selecting and implementing a rules-based management approach. First, rule and consequence need to be established early, within the first week of school, and preferably as early in the week as possible. Learners need to quickly acclimate themselves to the new school year and the specific rules and procedures that will govern classroom behavior. There should be a small number of rules, preferably 5 or less. Learners should not be handed a multi-page list of rules that are read aloud as they read along. The rules should be stated in positive terms, letting learners know what is expected of them, and examples of the target behavior should be provided. In fact, eliciting examples from the students is an excellent way to have students connect new learning to their prior knowledge. Finally, it is important to post the rules in a prominent place in the classroom where they can be seen and discussed often during the first few weeks. Timely reminders will be needed throughout the year. Some examples of the rules that might be used at the elementary level are be polite and helpful, take care of your school, behave in the cafeteria, keep your hands and feet to yourself, and keep the bathroom clean. While there is some good research that suggests having learners come up with the rules themselves, the research on the success of school-wide classroom management programs shows this is not absolutely necessary. What is necessary is that learners are taught the rules and allowed to practice with feedback providing for both achieving and missing the target. Some examples of rules for middle grades and secondary classrooms might be bring all necessary materials to class, be in your seat and ready to work when the bell rings, respect and be polite to all people, and respect other people's property. Again, it is necessary to explicitly teach the rules and allow learners to practice and have feedback provided for both observing and not observing the rules. This rules-based approach can also be used in the home. Some rules that we had when our children were small included, I will do what I'm asked to do without an argument, I will be kind and respectful to my parents and siblings, I will ask permission and accept the decision without getting angry, I will remain calm when I feel angry and talk about how I feel. Needless to say, the rules and types of consequences have changed as children grow older. For example, Time out in the bedroom might work for toddlers or early childhood, but will likely give way to not using electronic toys or a monetary penalty jar with charges for specific offenses, or the withholding of allowance for others. The primary benefit of using this approach in the home is if it matches the approach used at school so children can quickly meet expectations when they are in the school environment. It is important to establish a continuum of consequences for both meeting and not meeting expectations. Teachers must consider the level of significance, the type of reward, and the type of penalty for each of the levels. For example, for mild or easy-to-meet compliance, the teacher might reward with a smile or compliment that acknowledges the behavior, with a cheery note on an assignment, or allowing for a small number of tokens to be traded for a small reward if tokens are used as part of the classroom management program. Penalties that might be applied for mild deviations from expectations might include eye contact to let the person know that you have observed the infraction, having the student state the rule that was broken, having the student change seats by moving closer to the teacher, isolation by moving to a secluded part of the classroom, or confiscation of forbidden objects or notes. These need to be done with a minimum disturbance of the ongoing classroom activities. For moderately difficult to meet compliance, the teacher might post good work for public display, write a positive note home to the parents, or extend special privileges. One elementary school I worked with had a policy that each teacher had to send at least one positive sticky note home each day for at least one child. Most teachers found that they, the children, and the parents benefited from the teacher looking for positive behavior throughout the day. Moderate penalties might include staying after school, a loss of privileges, a call to parents, or isolation in a special in-school suspension room. Finally, for extensive behavior, the students might be provided an opportunity to go on special field trips, recognition at an awards banquet, or a write-up in the newspaper. These are generally awarded on a semester or even annual basis. For extensive violations of expectations, students might be sent to the principal's office, experience a loss of a special class event such as a field trip, or be required for a parent to follow the learner throughout a class day. These are used for major disruptions or when other less significant penalties have been applied but the behavior does not change. In general, there are 7 guidelines that most rules-based classroom management systems advocate. Each of these becomes easier to implement as the educator gains experience in the classroom practice. First, teachers need to learn to anticipate when learners might be expected to follow the rules and when they might not. For example, when learners are given seat work, it can be expected that some learners will not get to work immediately or will work only for a short time before getting distracted. Providing a task that will take only a short time to complete and walking around the room while the task is completed can alleviate that challenge. Second, learners need to be held accountable for their behavior. Stating and teaching the rules needs to be followed by learners being held responsible for their behavior. If the classroom management system is based on rules, rewards, and penalties, those must be adhered to consistently. Third, learners must be provided with specific feedback that names the target behavior and addresses how it was demonstrated or how an undesired behavior was produced. Fourth, there should be a focus on positive behavior. There is research that supports a 5-to-1 ratio of catching desired target behaviors versus identified undesired non-target behaviors. This might be thought of as 5 attaboys or 1 gotcha. In fact, it is recommended to go for a little higher ratio, perhaps as much as 10-to-1, to make sure there's enough recognition for meeting expectations. A 5th general principle is that there is a need for consistency in the establishment and implementation of a rules-based approach to classroom management. Inconsistency is likely to lead to more undesired behavior than might be displayed if no rules and penalties were established in the first place. This is one issue that creates challenges for inexperienced teachers. It is possible to recover, but a lot more energy and diligence is required to correct the situation than being consistent in the first place. Sixth, it is important to move about the room, connecting personally with each learner at some point in the lesson. This close observation of behavior provides the teacher with information about how specific learners are doing throughout the lesson. Finally, when teachers demonstrate competence in all of these guidelines, they demonstrate a level of with-itness that lets learners know that they are in control of the classroom management program. This is a critical component of a rules-based classroom management program. It is expected that the teacher is in charge, and the learners acknowledge that the teacher knows what is happening in the class and can control any situation that might arise.